Hello. So usually I run workshops and I take people through my lettering book and my process and just give us some more like hands-on guidance, but not able to do that obviously because of the pandemic. But recently I had a bunch of people purchase the book, big influx, so very exciting, but I want to provide an extra resource because usually I would say join me for my workshop, and if you buy the book you get like a discount for the workshop. But I figured I would just share it here on my YouTube channel and just be able to give people a link to that, and just be able to give them a little bit more. So I made this book a couple years ago. My own lettering style has changed and evolved as well, but yeah, I made this whole workbook, and I can just take you quickly through it. So my little introduction and my kind of go-to phrase is practice makes progress, not perfect. So we're going for progress. There's no perfection. I don't think you can really look at any lettering piece and be like, perfection. Well, I don't know. Actually, some older lettering is just fantastic, but it's not about being perfect. There's a reason it's hand lettered. If it was too perfect, you could just get it from a computer. So supplies wise, I really like the zebra brush pens. I should grab one from the office, but they're a bigger brush pen. Then the Tombow brush marker, which is this guy. You should have something this one or a very similar one that came with the book. So those are kind of any brush pen. Right now I'm using a Faber-Castell brush pen in blue because I just wanted to have blue ink on this to show you. You could also use a brush and a bottle of ink. You can also use watercolors. I like to use watercolors in my lettering, and definitely a pencil. I usually start my compositions in pencil before going over them in pen. I listed some other Instagrams that I really like following, and I kind of explain the difference between fine tip and broad tip. So sometimes I like to use fine tip. So it has a very small little brush, and I find that just a lot easier to control. Oh, you know what? These are mixed up. Sorry. The Tombow brush marker is let me grab one, but it's a much bigger brush. So both are great, both have different applications, but I find usually when you're starting, this can be a little bit easier to control. So basically the basics of doing lettering is really just understanding how the strokes work. So you're gonna go up and down when you're lettering, and you just need to know that when you're going down you apply pressure, and when you're going up you very light, and if you do it lightly you'll get a thinner stroke. So if we're going lightly up and then applying pressure going down, get a little unsmooth. So light up, pressure down, light up, pressure down, light up, pressure down, and that's how you're going to get that contrast. So you can practice just going up and down, up and down. I have little arrows explaining the way to go. The other thing you can do is fake it till you make it. So before I was able to like get more control, I did a lot of just faking it. So if you're taking something like an M, you know that this is when I went up, so I want to leave that light, and this is where I went down, so I'm going to make that thicker. So then you can just add in the thickness, and you basically end up with the same result. What's really good for this is like sometimes you don't have applications where you can use a brush pen. Like if you're drawing on a window, you may not have the application of a brush pen in a window paint marker, so you might be using just a monoline tip anyways. So in an application like that, you can just fake it and it'll pretty much look the same, and you'll be able to do that when you don't have a brush pen. If you're doing it in chalk, if you're doing it in pencil, that's the best way to do it, because then, yeah, like I said, you'll be able to fill it in with like just simple lines instead of using a brush. So there to make it. All right, so now let's get into practicing. Honestly, I always get so nervous when I'm filming. So let's see if I'm actually able to do this well. I had the uppercase in here first and then the lowercase. This is some practice I had done, I think, when I was demonstrating the book. So I'm gonna actually start here and just start with my L's actually, because that'll be a little bit easier. I'm a little nervous because I'm filming. There's pressure that I gotta be able to do this well. Okay, so thin and then thick. This one is pretty fine, so I'm not going like super thick. You can see my hand shaking. I'm just a general shaky hand person. But you know what? It's okay. You don't have to have perfect don't have to have perfect stillness to be a letterer. Oh, I thought this was the same pen, but evidently it's not. That's a lighter color. I wonder where that pen is. I've moved since, so. Yeah, so you can just follow the outline. Ooh, thin, thick, thin, thick. The other thing I would probably recommend is just doing some practice. I think when I was teaching the workshop, I had just practice where we just go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And so you want to get the feel for that first. Just practice up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So that's a good way to start. You can also do loops. That's just really good practice. So the A, I've added little connectors. You can see where that would connect to words. So that's how I would traditionally do a D. Another one you can do is the big loopy like this. Something I've been doing recently with my style is more like that, like having a straight line. That's another option. I've also been doing that with my A's. Doing also like a very exaggerated stroke on the back, but this is more of a traditional. I love F's. So G's wise, they're really fun because you can always really exaggerate. O. Another thing I like about doing an O is doing like a really big loop at the top. Kind of exaggerate it. Yeah. P's are actually usually tricky for me because I tend to like do this part really big, which is fine, but sometimes it's nice when it's a little daintier. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to do R's. You can also do without that little swirl. S, this one I've done pretty straight down, but you can also make the bottom part a lot bigger. You can also go like this and not have that little twist at the top, but I often like to put that little twist in. T is always nice. It's a nice thick line going down. So lettering should, I guess, be in one smooth motion, but it's okay to lift your pen off. And see. yeah, okay, so there's all our lower. I think I'll probably just do one of each of these to show you. Okay, the A I did here was pretty complicated. I kind of remember how I did it. Okay, yeah, okay. So in, round. Yeah, it's a little tricky. I think I usually end up simplifying my A's. You can also just do a really big A as your capital. This one is really pretty, but it's really, yeah, I'm shifting a lot. Yeah, close enough. B's, yeah, I feel like I would maybe do that a little differently now too. Yeah, I think more like that. Sorry. Thinking out loud. Okay. I think I would go down around like that. Something like that. That's more like what I would do now versus this. Yeah. I think I'd be more likely to go. Yeah, something like that. So, different ways. I might also do a D like that. Yeah, it's interesting to see how my own style has changed. I'm like, oh, this is really loopy. I think I was really into loops and flourishes. Very flourishy. Not quite what I do now. A G, I'd probably go, yeah, pretty similar, maybe not so flourishy. No, I think I usually do G's like that, I think. So I made this book. I'm a little out of practice, so I am quite shaky, and I apologize. Yeah, I really like doing M's. So a lot of times too, I usually do like leaving a little UE in there. So one fact that I like to share in my workshop is that I actually didn't pass calligraphy in grade 3. I don't know, did anyone else have, sorry, it was called, is it called calligraphy or cursive? I think the class was called cursive, and we had workbooks and like we had to do cursive. And I don't know that they do that in schools anymore, but yeah, we had to learn cursive, and I wasn't great at it, and I didn't pass the class, and that was in grade 3. Yeah, the only reason like I remember it so well is that my dad used to give us prizes if we got all A's and B's for a school year. I mean, have a prize at the end of the year. And that year, you know, I think I passed. I think I got a C. Sorry, I think I got a C in cursive. And because of that, I didn't get my prize, which was to go to the CN Tower. So I didn't end up going to the CN Tower until later in life because I got a C in cursive. Oh, I really like this U. Very curvy. Yeah, I like the bit of the unevenness on this W. You can make it more even, but I like the playfulness. And coming in hot, we got our Z. Alright, so from here I'm explaining how to go from letters to combining words. So that we've left off like that little bit on some of the letters, so that will be what connects them. What I like to do is use a little bit of bounce. So you could write everything in a straight line, but by varying the scale of the letters and the baseline, you can get this nice little bounce, which I quite like. So rather than it being like I also have started breaking my letters, which I didn't do before. Like breaking that H there instead of connecting it. Ugh. So instead I would do like yeah, and just add a bit more of a bounce and some playfulness in there. So yeah, I quite like to do that. So when it comes to connecting, yeah, so with my H, I could connect it. Bring that in and connect it to the next letter. But sometimes, especially with H's, R's, things that end like that, I now have started to just leave them and then connect the next letters. So kind of just depending on the letter, like my B, connect it through there. Ooh, I'm gonna run out of space. But my N, I could maybe leave, and put in the C and E, oh gosh, but leave them in there. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, so something like the N could disconnect and then have the C and the E, or an E and an R. So yeah, depending on like how it works, so usually like yeah, R's, N's, H's, I've started to kind of like disconnect. So you can do that as well, but basically like, yeah, like here, this B is now going to connect to an E. The other thing is wreaths. So I feel like this style, again, was maybe really popular a couple years ago, but putting words inside of wreaths. So I've given some examples here. You can copy these. You can also just experiment with making wreaths. Yeah, so they can be as simple as just dots. They can be, I really like this one. You can do all sorts of things. I've made this pretty small, so I'm just gonna put a little hi. Some other really, oh, maybe I'll just do a, yeah, simple little monogram. Again, sometimes especially on E's, I'll end up adding in that little line again because I end up skipping it. See a lot of thick lines on this. That's kind of what I've started doing more now. But yeah, you can fill in these. Yeah, you can play with some more. So the other thing is laurels. So instead of connecting the wreath all the way around, just doing some little lettering on the bottom. I really like this one. I'm gonna do oof. Not enough space. But you can do little initials in there. Let's do pretty cute. So I've left you space here, so you can just practice making your own little wreaths. They can be quite cute and fun. I think a good way to start is just the simple double leaf. Can't really go wrong. Rotate your paper, and then how do we complete a double leaf? With some dots. So then with the double leaf, it's nice, you can just go add in the dots, and that pretty much always looks nice. Yeah, I feel like my style is definitely like loosened up since this. I guess I wish I'd made it shorter back at the time. Yeah, I'm now using like thicker lines, loosened up. At the time it was like very thin and flourishy, but oh yeah, okay, so let me take you through this with the actual files, but I want to show just how I create a composition. So the tail of Despero, in color, the line here is red. So there's this red string that kind of connects all of the characters. Well, there's specifically like a red blanket, but all of the characters are connected and kind of like the red string of fate. So I wanted this red string to connect all the characters. That's one thing I really like with the story. It's all these different characters, but they're all connected. And so I wanted to have these little vignettes of each of the characters, but then also have the string go through and have the string connect to the most important like things for this character, like the crown, the violin, like the needle, the blanket, the fire. So anyway, beginning this composition to work was quite tricky. So usually the way that I work is I use a lot of tracing paper, and I use that to move things around, and then you can just go over and over and over and over and over your tracing paper until you get something nice. I'll have to pull it out and show you, but I usually draw with pencil, and then once I've got it, I go tracing paper, tracing paper, tracing paper, tracing paper. Once I've got the way I like, then I go over that tracing paper with pen, and then I go and I put the paper under my light board, and then I put it onto the final piece of paper. So you know what, let me walk you through one of those, but that's how I do it. I put some more samples. This is a lot of like my early lettering at the time. Yeah, so these are also like compositions. So I try to have a concept, and then yeah, like being struggle, like the text is through the negative space. So I really encourage, and usually in my workshop, I help people come up with a composition. And so a composition would be like, yeah, like when you're collecting those words, you're adding illustration, adding a concept. Yeah, and I've left plenty of room to practice. So maybe we should practice a little bit. So if you follow me on Instagram, you see my IGTV. I like to do quotes in the morning. My schedule has been all over the place because I was working 2 jobs and now starting new jobs. That's my excuse why I haven't done it in a month maybe. But I've been going through this book, so I've had it for a while. There's text on the bottom and then I just letter it on top. So it's just really easy for me to do in the morning. Yeah, and then I usually like choose my favorite ones. So like some of them are a little better than others. But yeah, I don't plan these out unless like, I don't know, sometimes I try to do a concept, but I don't really plan them out. I just go for it. That's why they can be all over the place. And then if I do like it and choose to use it, like this one worked out perfectly, and that was just like, just went for it. But sometimes if I didn't really work out, but I like the concept, like something like this, because I did it in one go, that's not lined up very well. So then I take this into my computer and I will like align things and fix it up in my computer. But because we're doing this with tracing paper, we avoid that issue. We're going to manually move it around. So I'm gonna find a new quote in here. Okay, if you want to be happy, be. We can do that quite simply. I'll start with my tracing paper. I'm just gonna try going for it. So one thing that's nice about doing it like this is trying to find things that can connect. So if I make to be a little bit smaller, I can do happy. Yeah. And I think I would like to play with my happy there a little bit more, but I see that I can now just fit 2B. I like to fit things as close as I can. And then I just keep flipping my paper. So end up with something like that. Not bad. The alignment could be a little bit better. What do we think it's doing? Yeah, so I'm just folding over and over and over and over again. I think I quite like that, and then that will fit nicely in there. So our final composition. Yeah, so this is great for just finding ways to make letters fit. We started with just writing out the letters, the words, they're pretty spaced out. Then I went over with my big brush. I could have done pencil, but sometimes I'm not, I just play around with it. And then from there we went here, and from there we went. So this, to this. Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with that one. And then when we do it, you could also just add in little embellishments, like little flowers, little leaves. I always find some well-placed dots helpful. Yeah, it's always nice to add some embellishment. Okay, so I have a light board, but if you don't have one, you can also use the window on a sunny day. That's working quite well. You could just trace it from the window. All right, so that's our final composition. I think it turned out very cute. This one obviously is quite simple compared to something like this where, oh my goodness, so complicated. I went through so much tracing paper, just taking out specific letters, getting the T I think was a real struggle for me. and just playing with it over and over again. Like I showed, there's different ways of doing each letter, and you'll find your style and find what you're comfortable with. I'm already finding like my style is like a lot thicker now and like a lot looser. I can show you like usually like if I was to do like my bloody hell bag, like so like no, I'm already going back to this style. Okay, so like be like a bit more loopy versus now I'm doing like a lot, yeah. Makes sense. Like I'm doing a lot more straight lines instead of loops, and just trying to do stuff more like off the cuff. Okay, sorry. I also want to show you the Tombow that I was talking about initially. So see, that's a much bigger brush. Yeah, so it can also be great. I find the bigger the brush, a little bit harder to control. So yeah, when you start out, I think it's kind of nice to use a fine point. I tend to write a lot bigger with the Tombow, but Tombows are super great. Yeah, they also have a little like mini guy. That can be great too. So yeah, these are also super great. Yeah, and then to show like kind of the difference in my style recently, here's some examples. So I went through and re-lettered all of my, so sorry if you haven't seen it, I have a calendar, and every year I try to change it up a little bit. I haven't done a full redo yet of like different cities, but I added 4 new cities and swapped some out, and then just to get it all to match, I went back and changed some of the lettering. So this is the original, so you can see that like it's quite loopy, the thins and the thicks, very much like my original style, versus the new one. So I'm not even really using like the thins and thicks anymore. I'm just going like full thick. I'm breaking up my letters more, so you can see where it connects here and it doesn't connect here, and it's just a very like looser, different style. So that's how my style's already changed. So yeah, I made this book 2 or 3 years ago, and I made this one about, yeah, again, 2 or 3 years ago. So my style has already changed and evolved. Nothing wrong with this style. It's just like, you'll definitely find that you grow. Like this is a more traditional, not even traditional, but I think it's just the popular calligraphy brush style that has come about. But you'll find your own twist on it, and don't be afraid to experiment. So again, with Angers Paris, yeah, the thins and the thicks, let me be clear, the thins and the thicks in there versus just pretty much like all thick, like a lot looser. Yeah, I'm a fan of my new style. Nothing wrong with the old style though. So yeah, anyway, you find your fit, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy. You don't have to have my book if you're watching this video and you don't have it. That's cool. You can just grab some paper and just follow along the way I have it here. That's totally cool if you'd like to purchase the book. So again, I usually do send it with a pen, usually this one or something very similar. Yeah, and then I would recommend trying out some other pens. And yeah, anyway, I hope that you enjoy this video, and you can definitely purchase it if you would like.